Welcome to the Mischief Maker broadcast, where chaos, creativity, and common sense collide. Your host, Joel Freeman, was kicked out of high school in Alberta, Canada. He left home at 17 and hitchhiked around North America as a long-haired hippie and dope-smoking fool. He made a 180-degree change, becoming one of the first chaplains in the history of the NBA. As a professional speaker, Joel has traveled to well over 55 countries. His many books have been published in 28 foreign translations. Pieces from his Black History collection have been seen by millions at the United Nations and many other venues. And now, the Chief Mischief Maker himself, Dr. Joel A. Freeman.
There he goes again, that baby Joel. He just knows how to talk at that age and think and all the rest. What a show tonight. I'm going to explain the QR code above in a few moments. But a good friend of mine, when he speaks, he opens up with this statement. And I'm going to kind of hitchhike off what he says. He's been on the show here before. His name is Daryl Colbert. But he says this. He says, we all have different personalities. We come from different backgrounds. We have different emotional pain thresholds, different identities, different education, maybe different ethnicities. But he says, one thing we have in common, we're all one decision away from saying something or doing something that could cost us everything. I want you to think about that. We're all one decision away, or one thing saying something that could cost us everything. We've heard and seen stories happen with politicians, religious leaders, all kinds of individuals that have kind of thrown everything down the toilet and had so many things going for them. And it kind of gives us pause. So today, whenever you're watching this, I have a friend of mine. His name is Greg Rogers. He lives in Baltimore. And we're going to talk about his childhood, his identity, his early influences, or we're going to get into his rise to the NFL and the pressures of opportunity in the NFL. And then we're going to talk about his descent into addiction and choices and consequences. And then hitting bottom, but not rock bottom. Hitting bottom again, but not rock bottom. Hitting bottom again. And then the whole idea of the turning point, the people he burned along the way, the institutions he burned along the way. In fact, if we had a title for this show, it could be called Repairing Burnt Out Bridges. And so if you are someone who has burned bridges, you want to lean in. If you're someone who's been burnt by someone else, you might want to lean in a little extra. Because we have someone with us today that is now the toast of Baltimore in terms of the mental health community and finding people. His bucket list is to find someone sitting on a bucket who has nothing left and is either very close or at rock bottom, because not all bottoms are at the bottom. And so Greg Rogers, he's going to be with us in a little bit, but I want to play a song. It's a song that I wrote. You've heard it before if you've been someone who's been with us in the show. And but before I play the song, I want to talk about the QR code. This is a way for you to find out what is a mischief maker. There's a definition there. It's a link tree also. But it's how you can be, whether you're in Japan, Australia, Belgium, Germany, UK, Canada, United States, wherever you are, wherever you're watching this. You too can become a mischief maker in your part of the world. And the goal is to create a vibe, a desire for people to become mischief makers. I'm not going to tell you what the definition is. You got to go to the QR code above. But also you can meet all of our other guests. This is show number 42, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. And we welcome you. Also, if you're watching this live, I've got something for you. You can participate. You can get your fingers going and you can type in your questions and we will stop the show. If it's germane to what we're talking about, we'll read what you have to ask or what you have to say, and please include where you're watching, what part of the world you're watching in, so we can celebrate with you this way of spanning time and space to connect with each other. So I'm here in Studio B. You've seen Studio A, and today we're going to listen to a song. It's called Selfaholics Anonymous. Listen closely to the words, the lyrics, and then in the music, and we might unpack some of these lyrics before we're done. Mel, let's go with it.
We admit we're powerless over self-absorption. Our lives unmanageable, drowning in distortion. Came to believe in the power greater than our pride, the redemptive plan that restores us to sanity inside. Negative impacts linger from the selfishness we've sown. Isolation, broken bonds, a heart of heavy stone. But when we choose unselfishness, 3 blessings come to light: peace within, true connections, and a future shining bright. Selfaholics Anonymous, we gather here today to find a higher power who shows us a better way. Turn our will to someone greater, let go of our own. Walking through these lonely steps, we're never alone. Negative impacts linger from the selfishness we've sown. Isolation, broken bonds, a heart of heavy stone. But when we choose unselfishness, 3 blessings come to light: peace within, true connections, and a future shining bright. A searching moral inventory of our private fears, facing every selfish act with repentance and tears. Direct amends to those we've harmed, healing broken ties. Unselfishness brings freedom, light within our eyes. So let's continue seeking a life beyond our needs. Unselfishness, a journey planting humble seeds. Together we'll discover the beauty of this path. Selfaholics Anonymous, reclaiming what we lack. What we lack, reclaiming what we lack.
Well, those lyrics came from just a lot of working with people who have experienced addiction. And there's just no way to describe the depths of despair that people go into And when you are with someone who you think is no one could be more at the bottom, and yet there is more. There's more. Well, Gregory, come on in, and we want to talk with you about a little bit about your early influences. You have, and by the way, friends, as you're watching, please enter in, ask questions, any comments, any ideas that you wanted to communicate, and Greg will jump right on it. Greg, you're in Baltimore. Did you grow up in Baltimore?
Yeah, I grew up in Northeast Baltimore off of York and Cold Spring between Morgan State University and Loyola University.
Take us back. I know that now, you are the toast of the mental health community, from what I hear and understand, in Baltimore City. They look to you as a leader, as someone who has been through so much and yet has come through it. And still every day, realizing, like we said at the very beginning, we're all one decision away from saying something stupid or doing something that could cost us everything. And you know that better than most people. It's actually a gift you have that you have received as a result of your work. And another thing is, when I'm around people who've struggled with addiction, I have tremendous respect, because there's very few people on the planet that have faced juvenile thinking, juvenile behavior, self-centeredness like someone who has struggled with addiction. And so I give you props. I salute you in all that you have confronted in your life to even be here where you are today. Take us back to your childhood, your parents, your upbringing, your friends. Just kind of give us some texture there, context.
So I grew up with both parents in the household. My dad was a janitor at Calvert Hall High School for 50 years. My mom worked in the printed circuit industry for a small company, then later worked for Giant Food. Neighborhood was mostly middle class. A lot of kids in the neighborhood. It was like one big family. If you were a male, you were expected to play sports. So at 5 years old, 6 years old, I was carrying the bags to the football field for the pickup games. And they would let me play one play and let me run around with the ball like I was going to score, like you see on TV. Mm-hmm. And I gained a love for football. And my neighbor, his name was Vince Kinney. He eventually went to Calvert Hall, University of Maryland. Then he went to the Denver Broncos. He was like a mentor to me. And my brother was a football star in the community also. He played high school football, was player of the year. So I had this legacy that, this pressure on me that I had to be the best at whatever I did, because I was following those guys' footsteps.
So, they say, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Can you speak to that at all in taking us back to your childhood?
Yes, most of my friends did well in life. And they wanted the best for me. Like my one neighbor went to Loyola High School. My other neighbor played quarterback for Loyola High School. Vince Kinney went to Loyola, went to Calvert Hall. My best friend was his brother. He played basketball at Calvert Hall. David Jones, neighbor, he went to Poly. We had a couple guys go to City. So it was a healthy neighborhood. But what really happened in all of that, I started playing basketball. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't a good basketball player, but I was physical. And the recreation center director said, listen, I can get you a scholarship to Loyola. And my father said, well, if you go to Loyola, you got to find somewhere else to live because Calvert Hall feeds us. And my brother brought a gentleman home that had issues in his household, and he brought him to stay with us for a while, and he was a basketball coach. And he molested me.
My goodness.
So from that point, I became this kid that was overly aggressive in sports.
To prove something regarding your sexuality?
I was always trying to prove that I was a man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was overly aggressive. I would hit you and I would jump up in the air. And when I was a freshman at Calvert Hall, they said, well, told my father, Charlie, we might need to take him to see somebody. He's just too aggressive. But I never told anybody.
Wow.
So that was my first secret that I carried for 50 years.
What now? Did as you look back, what were the warning signs that you saw, both internally and externally, that things might not go the way that that people might expect of you in the athletic realm and otherwise?
I was pretty much, I did things my own way. I was a leader some days, and then some days I wasn't a leader. If the team stretched over here to the right, I would stretch to the left. If it was, we come out early to warm up, I would stay in the locker room till almost game time, then I would come out. It was really a lot of self-centeredness. And then one afternoon, the coach told me, look, Greg, you got to stop hanging with this guy on the team. I was at Calvert Hall. And he said, if I catch you with him again, I'm going to make you run. He left the room. I was playing with the guy again. So after practice, he kept me out there till about 9 o'clock at night because I just jogged. And he pulled up a lawn chair and said, I'm going to stay out here with you. But afterwards, he gave me a hug and said, you have the potential to play in the league one day if you discipline yourself. And I really couldn't grasp what he was saying at that point. I knew I was good, but I just couldn't stay out my own way because I had all this rage in my head. It was always the basketball coach in my head. So,
how was your relationship with your dad?
We struggled. He loved me, but we struggled because I had two brothers, and my two brothers didn't have the same skill set that I had. So I felt he catered more to them. He really didn't pay me any attention. But that just wasn't the case, because if I needed a baseball glove because Paul Kenny was throwing the fastest fastball in Baltimore, and he'd go buy me the best glove to catch. He would buy me the best football shoes. Anything I needed for sports, he would buy me. And I really couldn't see it then, but he put me in a position for me to be successful by going to Calvert Hall. But he was a country guy with a third grade education. But he had great people skills. So he wasn't a guy that was going to hug you and tell you he loved you. But everybody loved my father. To this day, they still talk about Charlie Rogers. He was a pillar at Calvert Hall in the Towson community in the Northeast Baltimore. He started a youth program with his retirement money to help kids that were struggling. They never charged registration. He spent everything he had helping people.
So you, in high school, that opened the door to college. Is that Towson State University at the time? Yes. Go ahead.
I was supposed to go to had a recruiting trip at the University of Pittsburgh, and I flew out there, and I got drunk on the recruiting trip. And Jackie Sherrill was the coach at the time. He rescinded the offer.
Wow.
So Jerry Claiborne was at the University of Maryland. He was upset because, he was a second choice for me. And so Towson, University of South Carolina wanted me to play tailback. And so Towson came in because my father knew Brother Andrew, Brother Andrew was Gordy Combs. He was the assistant head coach at the time. He was his uncle. He was a Christian brother. And he had helped my father buy his first house when he came to Baltimore. So it's like, we already had this deal. Like, he took care of my father. And I met this gentleman named Coach Albert, Bill Albert. And he was one of the nicest guys that I had ever met. And I went to his office on a recruiting trip, and he said, you can be a big fish in a little pond or a big fish in a big pond. It's your decision. So I ended up at Towson. It's probably one of the best decisions I ever made.
So take us to Towson. What was going on? Were you BMOC, big man on campus, and just kind of going crazy out in the field and doing great exploits?
Yeah, I was. They called me the governor of Towson. I was the guy. And it was interesting. Because when I first came, I knew I could play, but they made me wait my turn. First time I touched the ball, I ran 75 yards. And the guy who started before me, they used to tape him up every game, but he was a senior. And I just had to wait. And Sean Landetta, the punter for the New York Giants, he was punting for us at Towson. And he took me under his wing. He said to me, every time that I punt the football and you're on special teams, the National Football League is looking at you.
Wow, that's prescient. Wow.
So my sophomore year, I started getting letters from the National Football League. And then Bobby Beffert's two sons transferred to Towson. He was the general manager for the Washington Redskins at the time. So he was at every football game. And
he was watching you.
Yes. And he would send messages through his sons. Because I never really played to the ball, because I was the star. So, I'll shut my man down and I'll stop and watch. And he told his son, Jeff, if Greg's going to play in the National Football League, he has to go to play the full play. And I started playing the full play. We're in a championship game in Norfolk.
That was great wisdom, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And it's a metaphor for life.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's one of the metaphors that I've gotten in football and sports. When I was struggling, it helped me keep coming back, the resiliency of it. Football laid the groundwork to get through the struggle of life. And I could escape with football. That was my escape Saturday evenings when the light and the crowd started yelling. That was my escape from the voices of the molestation, the voices of feeling like a failure, the voices of not feeling like a man sometimes, the over-sex myself because of the molestation.
So at Towson, did they know you were using or on the side, or what was happening at Towson?
So I was good until my junior year. A family member gave me some cocaine, and I snorted for a couple weeks. And then they were having a party at my dad's former house, and they passed the bowl to me, which was free basing at the time. And I hit the bowl, and it felt like all my dreams went with it right then, because I couldn't control the chase of it. But I was doing just enough in school that nobody really knew that I was addicted to freebasing cocaine. And then my junior year, I failed out. And I had to take summer courses to get back in. And I barely passed the summer courses. And I never forget the day that I passed the course. I had to go to summer camp. They gave my equipment, and they had like 10 NFL scouts out on the field. And they came to watch practice. I was always good. But it was something, once I took the free base, the hit of the free base, it controlled everything. Even though I went through my senior year as one of the top cornerbacks in Division II, I think I was ranked in the country probably 52 amongst cornerbacks in the NFL through Mel Kiper. So I still could hold it together, but it was really starting to unravel. I was falsely accused of a sexual assault on campus, and it really started to unravel. I had to go through that shame and guilt, knowing I wasn't guilty, but I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The decisions.
Yes.
So now I have all that on me, and I'm supposed to go to the NFL. And then the coach tells, the weightlifting coach tells the NFL scouts he's lazy. He don't want to come to the weight room. So
that's not the kind of endorsement you want to have anyone say about you if you're going to the NFL, right?
No.
Or any big sport.
Instead of being a third round pick, Bobby Beathard and Mr. George Young made a deal with each other. Mr. Young wanted me because he knew my dad. He was a Calvert Hall guy, city guy. He wanted to take me in the 7th round, and Mr. Beathard said he wanted me. And so him and Mr. Beathard made a deal, and I had Tony Agnon as an agent and end up signing as a free agent with the Washington Redskins.
So bring us into the first days with the Redskins, and what was beginning to happen there internally and externally.
The first day they flew me from BWI to DC, which was insane. So they flew me over, they picked me up, and they bring me in, and they said, Darryl Green, this is the guy that's going to take your spot. Now, that's unheard of. Darryl was just a guy.
Yeah.
And he was really pleasant. He was a Christian. And he had these morals and values. And he would help you with anything.
Yes.
And he said, you're going to be okay. And so went to mini camp. And during mini camp, the scouts would come around and they would say, I want you to see the coach. I want you to see the coach. Because they were setting you up. What they did was the people they thought had the potential to make the team, they kept us over to train. They put us in a hotel so we could train before summer camp, catch up to speed. So I was one of the guys selected. And, my ego said I had arrived. I was the guy in Baltimore. Everybody was hailing Gregory Rogers, Calvert Hall, going to the Redskins. I get there, I'm making plays. Joe Theismann, I take 2 picks off of him the first day of camp. Doing well. One mistake I made, we had a day off, and I brought the guys back to Baltimore. We went to 32nd Street Plaza, and we freebased. And, we had practice the next day. We were sloppy. Coach Pettibone was yelling, he said, that can't happen again, Rogers. Nobody goes to Baltimore. So they already felt I was going to be a bad influence, but I was making plays. I was making plays, so they kind of overlooked it. And then Torrey Nixon, he was a second-round pick. He held out. And my agent said to me, if I'll play him, if I go in, I'll play the person in front of me or behind me, whatever it was. You hit everything moving.
Mm-hmm.
One practice, I hit Art Monk, and they stopped practice and said, "Get off the field. You don't hit him. He caught 80 balls last year."
Wow.
They had a conversation with me. They said, "Rogers, we know you're aggressive. We know you want to make the team, but you can't hit him." So Torrey Nixon comes in, and I went from playing nickelback to just watching practice. And he was below average to me. So we had a scrimmage, and they ran a counter tray. I read it, knocked the guy out. Next meeting, Joe Gibbs says, the little cornerback from Towson made a good hit tonight. Now, he knew. I just had breakfast with him that morning. He knew my name. But what he was saying was, look, we're not keeping you.
Wow. You felt that at that moment?
I felt I was hurt.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, you work towards this dream.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out that it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
It's political. So
we're going to put a pause on that. We're going to take a look at our sponsor. And when we come back, I want to talk about, what happened after you felt that disrespect from Coach Gibbs and what went on, and then the dissent. And I want you to be as real as you're willing and able to be. And then I want us to talk about the rise out of the dissent and the decisions that you've made. So let's go to, I think I've got something about Winston Churchill. I think that's what I'm told.
Hello, I'm Winston Churchill with a dreadful British accent. Back when I was Home Secretary, Jack Johnson fought a match in London. Order Jack Johnson Speaks to hear his real voice. What crazy magic are these QR codes anyway? Order it.
20,000 showed for a fight that was promising. July 4th would go down as timeless. To talk about it, I'd be honored. But why listen to me when you can hear it straight from Jack Johnson, the 15th round right now in his own voice.
Welcome to the fight of the century. In this corner, we have...
So this is a publication I put together called Jack Johnson Speaks. And in here you can hear his voice. I'm not going to go into a lot of details about that, but if you go to the QR code, you can learn more about. I think it's the second on the link tree. And also I developed this. This is a championship belt for Jack Johnson I designed. And this may not look like much for the Rosetta universe, but this is actually a fundraiser incentive gift that if you donate, the only way to get this is to donate to the foundation, and you can get that at jackjohnsonspeaks.com. And once you donate, then we'll send this to you wherever you are in the world. Is our way of saying thank you for donating for this project, the Rosetta Universe. So that's the name of that tune. And let's come on back now to Greg. You the wheels start coming off with the Washington Redskins. Start giving us a picture of what the descent of what began to happen at that point. After that point,
I made a decision to walk out of camp. I bought 10 ounces of crack cocaine and locked myself in a hotel. I came out 6 months later. And in the beginning, I still had the ability to get good jobs. I coached college football at Morgan, but I would always destroy the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And, I lost a great job at Morgan, coached football at Calvin Hall, but I couldn't stop borrowing money from the students and the coaches and former alumni. And, they barred me from Calvert Hall from life. Then the dissent started getting worse. I started getting locked up for possession charges. And then finally, I had 60 strong arm robberies. I used to pick up cash registers and walk out the store with the cash registers. And I was going to prison for a long time, and I was in court, and my dad had 2 or 3 lawyers there. And the judge, I think at the time, was Judge Russell. He was a Loyola graduate. And he knew my football prowess. So I'm in the courthouse, and I think I'm going to prison. I'm afraid because I'm not a tough guy. And the gentleman before me who did a similar offense got 30 years. There was a gentleman from my church that was in the courtroom, and my lawyer said that Mr. Rogers had somebody to speak on his behalf, and I didn't know anything about it. It was a church member that my father had a relationship with, and he stood up in the courtroom and said, "My name is Dr. Gossie Hutchins, professor of history at Morgan State University, and I'm an addict. And I believe if Mr. Rogers is given the same opportunity I was given, his life could change." And Judge Russell sent me home with Dr. Gossie.
My goodness. Did he become your sponsor?
No, he didn't become my sponsor, but he became a close mentor. So the next morning, he picks me up. He calls me at 5 o'clock and says, "Greg, are you ready to go?" I said, "Go where?" He said, "We're going to a 12-step meeting." He takes me to the meeting. All these old guys, they were smoking cigarettes in the meeting then. It was an AA meeting. And he's the secretary, the chairperson. He says, "We got a special guest today. Just got out of Baltimore County Detention Center. Couldn't stop smoking crack. Walked out of professional football. And Greg gonna tell his story." There's an old guy named Richard Lewis. He was the guru of Baltimore at the time. And I said, I don't have enough time to tell my story. And they said, "We didn't ask you that. We just want to hear what happened." And it was the first time I got in touch with the degradation of addiction. Because I was talking about the losses. You know, how my mother would cry when I would come home because my hands were dirty from striking the light or pulling the choy out the stem. She would just cry and pray. And my dad said, "Just go downstairs and lay down, Greg." And for years, they endured the pain and the shame of my addiction. Because I would come to Calvert Hall and borrow money from the teachers. I would knock on their doors in the community. I would steal from them. The disease of addiction had such a tight hold on me. And every time I went to 55 treatment centers, and every time I thought I would get a reprieve, I would never tell the whole story. I would never talk about the molestation. I would give you everything but that, and it always was churning in my head that the shame of it. So I just kept using. And I just couldn't catch a break. I go to upstate New York for a while. I went to Florida. And then when I got back from Florida, my father sent me a bus ticket. And I didn't realize that he was dying because he needed a kidney. And I called this guy in a 12-step program. who I didn't really like him because he told me I was arrogant one time. And his name was Thomas. He was a big guy in Baltimore, spoke all over the country. And he said, I'll take you. I said, I need 90 days so I can give my father a kidney. He said, I'll take you to meetings every day for 90 days. And he took me to meetings. And I was able to give my father a kidney.
How many years did that add to his life?
15.
My goodness.
And it was the first time when we came out the surgery that he said he loved me.
Wow.
And we had this special bond after that. The disease still had me. I would hold the family hostage. I would knock on the door at 3. You got to give me some money because I gave Dad the kidney. I was a horrible individual. And he would say, Arlene, give him the money. And then finally, she said, I'm not giving them anything else. And then he passed away. He died. And I felt lost because we had established this special bond. We would sit on the patio, and I never forget, we were in the kitchen, and he said, Greg, I want the best for you. And I'm going to tell you why. He had a scar on his leg, and I never knew why the scar was on his leg. But he was shot in North Carolina, a little town called Clarkton, going into a juke joint. The guy shot him with a shotgun, blew his leg open.
My goodness.
And they thought he was going to die. And when he survived, my grandmother called his stepbrother who worked at Calvert Hall and said, you got to take him. I got to get him out of here. And he came to Baltimore and his life changed. He married my mother she brought her from North Carolina. He married her and he started raising a family and started living differently, But he would tell me stories at the kitchen table about the things that he had gotten into as a child, as a young man. So he understood the struggle, and he just wanted the best for me. So when he passed, he turned me over to the bishop. He told the bishop to take care of me. And to this day, we talk every day. The bishop's 93 years old. We talk every day. When he travels, I go with him. But he's been a father figure to me. I never really understood grief, though.
Unpack that.
When you spend your whole life thinking you the guy, you ignore the people who love you. And I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to him. Because that night I was using and they kept calling me. I could not get there. I just couldn't get there. And that haunted me for years. Until I came into recovery and started doing step work and realizing it was probably best he didn't see me in that condition passing on. But there's no greater love. He loved me. I always thought that he loved my other two brothers more, but he loved me. And when I realized that he left the bishop to take care of me, I said, Bishop, I need you to look out for him. He's struggling. And I struggled for years. From the shame and guilt of everything I had done to my family, everything I had done to Calvert Hall, everything I had done to my church community, the institutions that I worked for, people trusted me, and I burnt every bridge down with a flamethrower. And I couldn't go back. Like I said, Calvert Hall barred me for life. But the beauty of it is redemption, grace. I woke up at 17 months clean. I got married and I relapsed. And I woke up in a blackout in Towson. And this police officer said, "Coach, I'm going to take you to the hospital." And they took me to St. Joseph in Towson. And they put me in the psych ward. And I was there 2 days and I wanted to leave. And they called security. And I said, "It's not going to go easy on you guys." And the nurse had the injection. And they started counting. They attacked me, and it was ugly. And I woke up on a gurney, slobbering. And I said, "God, if you save me, I'll serve you." But before that, let me go back 1 minute, Joel. I was working at healthcare. I was working at Code Blue Men's Shelter. Gentleman by the name of Lee Martin, who's a Calvert Hall alumni, gave me a job. And I was good at what I do working with the men. It was like, if you know anything about the riots in Penn North, that's what the shelter was when I got there out back. So I'm working with the men, and one night a gentleman rubs up behind me sexually and almost kill him. And they called me in the next morning and says, "Greg, you got to go see somebody because the level of aggression that you showed doesn't equal the force." So they sent me to see a therapist, and I was able to tell a therapist that I was molested by the basketball coach. And that was the start of like doing some work on myself. But they wouldn't let me work with the men anymore. And one night, someone was faking an injury, and they sent me outside, and this lady pulls up, and I said, "You can't park here because of the policy of the building." And she said, "Okay, young man." And she moved to the side, and I said, "Do you mind me asking, who do you work for?" She said, "My name is Katie League. I'm the director of community service for healthcare for the homeless." And I said, "You know, this is a God moment. Can I interview with you now?" And she said, "No, send me your resume." She received my resume 10 o'clock at night. She acknowledged she had it. And 6 months went by. They said they never hire us at healthcare for the homeless. They called me in for an interview. And they said, "Why do you want to work here?" I said, "Because you guys treat the whole person." She said, "Can you tell me about it?" And I said, I came down here for some help with my addiction. I had some issues going on. Need some pain pills for my leg. And a gentleman pulled me to the side and said, "Your breath smells." And he was compassionate. He said, "I can help you get some new dentures." And she said, "Is there anything else?" I said, "I've been using drugs for 35 years and I'm clean today." She said, "Okay, is there anything else?" I said, "I had 60 strong arm robberies on my record." She said, "Is there anything else?" I said, "I was falsely accused of sexual assault by a white female in college." She said, "Greg, is there anything else?" And I said, "No." And they didn't give me the outreach job. 6 months go by and they called me back in, said, "Greg, we created a job for you."
Really? Wow.
It's a community health worker. So they gave me a desk and a little computer, and she trained me, and I became one of the best in the country, helping people, working for healthcare for the homeless. Was featured in the Museum of Art with an exhibit. Baltimore Museum of Art. It's called More Than Conquerors. But that whole process of telling her is a God moment, and she became a mentor to me. So it always looked like when it was completely dark, when I was going to lose everything, I would be shown favor. So after I got out of the hospital, my wife dropped the bag in the middle of the floor. And I didn't think I had a marriage anymore. I went to treatment at this famous place, Ashley Treatment Center, where they treat the movie stars and all that good stuff. And they weren't going to let me in because they said I was violent. And the head doctor named Dr. Greg said, we're going to give him an opportunity. And when I was at the facility, I didn't talk for 2 weeks. I had been to 55 treatment centers. It was nothing for me to say. And a gentleman pulled me to the side. He said, you got to talk about the secret. For some reason you're not sharing in group. It's something that you need to say. And I said, the counselor looks like the lady who falsely accused me of sexual assault. Monday morning, I want you to go to group. I want you to say that. When my turn came, and I said, you look like the lady who falsely accused me of sexual assault. They stopped the group. They took me to the head clinician. They took her to see somebody. And they said, Greg, we're proud of you. Because you finally gave us something to work with. We knew it was something inside that you were struggling with, but we couldn't pull it out you. We needed you to tell us. And that really started my journey to recovery, because I realized if I told the secret or what was going on in my head, I could stay clean. So this guy who I really was so much different than me, he was a drummer for Teddy Pendergrass. He said he would sponsor me, but he understood the yell of the crowd. How intoxicating.
The cheer.
Yes.
Cheers.
Oh. I think every time I would pull the stem, I was trying to get the cheer again. I was reliving the moment of running out the tunnel in the stadium. And then it started to fade away. I couldn't hear it anymore. And he had that same experience playing for Teddy Pendergrass. So we started going to the Dunkin' Donuts and doing step work. And I could see my life starting to unfold. I became a different person. I started looking differently. I started acting different. I carried myself different. The shame and guilt wasn't killing me. And then I was in my third step. I thought I had finally made a decision to turn my will and my life over. And I got a call that Billy, who was the basketball coach, had OD'd, and he was at University of Maryland. And I said, I'm going to go pull the plug on him. And a friend of mine, David, was a church guy. He's a 12-step guy, but he's a solid man. And we talk every morning. And the ironic thing about Dave, and he's still an every morning guy for me, they said, don't mess with Greg. He'll use in a heartbeat. And Dave said, nope, that's not my experience. I'm going to work with him. And we would talk every morning. He says, Greg, I just need you to catch the bus down to University of Maryland. I was down on Falls Way and I had to go down to the Fayette Street, down to the main hospital. And I went down there and I walked in and I said, Billy, I wish you peace on your journey. And a tear came down his eye. He's on a respirator. and I walked out. And I never looked back from that point, and my recovery just took off.
Wow.
It just took off. They started calling me to speak at different places, and they wanted to hear what I had to say. And for 30 years, I went to meetings and couldn't say anything. And then finally, it was my first year anniversary, and they almost had to close the room down. People came from all different states, everywhere, because it was kind of ironic, because go back a little bit, my sponsor at the time, he was we're at a
About
meeting.
3 minutes left.
Okay. We're at a meeting, and God kept staring at me, Joe. And he said, why does God keep staring at me? He said, you don't understand, you're the miracle.
Wow.
People want to see the miracle. And I didn't grasp it. He said, no, you're the witness. But I didn't grasp it till the anniversary when they came from everywhere. And so that started that journey of recovery. Can't hear you, Joe.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better, Joe.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I've been hearing everything you're saying. So we have about 2 minutes left. Kind of bring us into what this means. The recovery, the reconciliation, the building bridges back, keys to open doors, people welcoming you, who used to just take the other side of the street or not want to be around you. Give us an insight into that.
I'm just going to give you. So I'm working at the hospital, and I get a call to see a lady, and she can't speak English, so she puts me on the phone with her daughter. This is the day before yesterday. And the daughter says, my mother needs a kidney. And I say to her, I donated one to my father. And the young lady's crying on the phone, and her mother has a tear come down her eye. And I said, I will walk this journey with you. Today, I go see a gentleman in a treatment program who had been coming in and out of the hospital for 5 years. And I go to the treatment program. He has over 120 days clean, sober. And I give him a hug and tell him I love him. And he said, can I take a picture with you? Because I want you to show the nursing staff in the emergency room that I'm a miracle of recovery. And that's the beauty of redemption.
Wow.
So the last call today was from Calvin Hall, who barred me for life. One of the counselors was taking some food to a homeless encampment in Towson, and one of the gentlemen recognized the Calvin Hall bag and said he was a 2006 alumni. So they asked my brother, could they call me to assist with getting this guy the appropriate help? That's redemption. That's
Banned for life.
banned for life.
Get that. Oh my goodness.
I'm look.
Greg, we got to go. I'll tell you, this is crazy. I hate stopping right now, but we have to. But I just want to celebrate that with you, and thank you so much for the depth, the length, the breadth of what you shared with us. I not only heard words, but I heard the music behind the words and the passion. And I so appreciate this time together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joel.
You have just experienced another episode of the Mischief Maker broadcast. Hit the subscribe button. Connect at chiefmischiefmaker.com. Thanks for coming along for the ride. And hopefully, you are now a bit closer to becoming a mischief maker in your part of the world.